This episode is dedicated to the women who find themselves trapped in cycles of hyperindependence, codependency, people-pleasing, overgiving, or perfectionism, patterns that are deeply rooted in the generational trauma that we carry. I invited Christina onto the podcast for this eye-opening, amazing, phenomenal episode where we dive into how we can come back to our true feminine, secure selves, where we feel worthy of receiving, being supported, being connected, and thriving in our creativity and joy. And it's from this space where we can attract and sustain and nourish those relationships we want to have with healthy, emotionally, and available men. So in this episode, we discuss have we gone too far with feminism, that generational trauma that I spoke about, the different roles that we play in relationship, how to tell the difference between healthy and toxic men, how to heal that relationship that we have with sex and our bodies. And Christina gives us an opening into her journey from codependency and hyperindependence to conscious celibacy, coming back to her self-worth and breaking those cycles of love addiction and codependency. Guys, I cannot stress enough how amazing this episode is. I'm very blessed and honored to have had Christina on the podcast and so excited to share this with you. So without further ado, let's get into this juicy episode. Welcome to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. I'm Sammy, a certified breakup and relationship coach, attachment specialist, former love addict, and spiritual junkie. This podcast is for you, the hopeless romantic who loves to love, and a safe space for us to explore and heal our attachment trauma, broken hearts, and love addictions. Together, we are on a mission to become the love of our own lives so we can have successful, healthy, secure relationships with others. So if you're ready to create a life and love beyond your wildest desires, you're in the right place. Your journey towards becoming more secure in love and life starts now. Welcome back, my loves, to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. And today I am joined by the beautiful Christina Simonet. Christina is a beautiful soul that I met here in Chiang Mai, but she is living in Bali, originally from Germany. And I've asked her to come on the podcast with me today because she is, first of all, a phenomenal human being. And we collaborated together at the beginning of the year, and I was just blown away by her wisdom, her energy, and just everything that she just beautifully shared with my audience. And so it's a pleasure to have her on the podcast today as we talk about and journey through the topic of codependency. And we're very much inviting Spirit into our episode today to guide us through and see what else comes up. This is really exciting conversation that I'm so excited to get diving into. So a little bit about Christina, and then I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more. So Christina is a spiritual teacher, empowerment guide, sexual alchemist for women, helping them transform their trauma into triumph and become their most sovereign and vibrant self. Oh, that is a juicy, juicy tagline, Christina. So I would love to welcome you, first of all, onto the podcast and maybe dive into a little bit more about who you are and the type of work that you do.
Thank you, Sammy, for this amazing, beautiful welcome. It's like honey. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to share today this beautiful conversation. Yes, so my passion, my purpose is all around women and us stepping into our rawest expression, that we really feel safe in our body, feel safe to authentically express and have our full sovereignty back in relationships and business, and also stepping up to the leadership and the impact we know we are meant to have. So the women I'm working with are always empath, psychically very gifted, sometimes known, sometimes unknown, and then discovering it. And they are here to lead and guide others. And it's about them stepping out of the closet that we probably all know of, this being invisible and shy and playing small. And yeah, my work is around healing the subconscious mind. So all the programming we have from childhood, but also ancestral, past lives, and soul. So I work with divine conscious energy. I'm going to refer to God a lot because it's, for me, one of the most important relationships. What I also see is what transformed my life tremendously. And every time a woman reclaims her connection with God, or you can call it source, the shift's happening, because for me, we come back to the truth. As a disclaimer, when I say God, I know it can trigger. You can call it however you like. I'm very open. It has nothing to do with a specific religion. I did do a lot of work around God. So to kind of like use it now, you can always say creator of all that is, source, life, your goddess, Mother Earth. Who knows, you can call it a mango, as long as you feel that reference to your higher self. And so that's what I'm doing for the last 11 years. There are like two wings, and the other is that I'm an artist. So I worked as an actress, I am a dancer, and my 20s were very much around that. And then the healing just came up more and more and more. And the more that happened, the less the path of the artist was dominant. Of course, it's within me. So I have a natural talent to express what I thought is normal, but what I realized a lot of women, men also, but let's talk about women, are restricted, right? In the expression, in the hips of being silly. That's something that comes very easily to me. And I love to create spaces through women seeing me, allowing it to myself, that they step into it. And every time there's so much transformation. It's just really, really beautiful.
Oh, and it's so wonderful to see you light up as you talk about your work, Christina. So, why is this work important to you? Why is it important work for the world?
I have full body goosebumps. That's always the soul calling when you ask that question. Whew. So, why is this important for the world? Why is this important to me? I came to this world and I grew up very fast. So I would say I always had, like, let me say, an unnormal path. I was never in this programming of you need to study, you need to do this. I always had that knowing I'm here for something else. The artist path, brought me always in this, let me say, little percentage of the world that dared to do something different. I felt different since I'm little. I grew up having different sicknesses. So I was exposed very early on to healers, to different doctors. And I do believe I chose this family with all the different stories and the sicknesses to wake up very quickly to my gifts. So they were always there since I'm little, that connection to God or angels. It got shut down for a moment, but I always had that calling. I deeply believe that my soul and my dharma of doing this, and I get emotional saying it, is what brought me here, because I felt so different that I had a lot of moments I didn't want to be here. And I knew, because my soul said, we are not done, and this is not the end. Suffering is not what you're here for. I always had this hope it will get better. And so that was like inevitable to just push me on this path. And why divine work for women is because I think it just happened. And I always attracted women because I went through this. Can we say, like, how do you say that? Not kind words, like shit show, cancel clear. Can we say these things?
Yes.
I went through a lot of struggling, and from emotional abuse, sexual abuse, chronic illness, grew up in a certain container in the family where I saw my mom not being empowered. And I had this, I think she was probably my first student to wake up to my gift. So I had this empowerment. It was something so natural to me. So it's just, and why is this important for the world? Because, well, how can the world heal if the divine feminine is not healed in men or women? For me, women, and we can go a bit in a higher octave here. We know the patriarchy. We know for many centuries, even it's not new. Actually, it's not so new that we have rights as women. My grandma still needed to ask her husband for money. My great grandma was not allowed to have her own bank account. We're forgetting this. We have up to 7 generations of DNA and beliefs in our blood, and we do forget that this is very new. And so this is a part of the whole evolution transformation we're in right now, is that we reclaim back our truth and our power as women. What I see my path is into a balanced way, because a lot of the time we overcorrect. And this is where we women think we have to do it all alone. We are tired. We don't trust the man. We can't surrender, right? We having our heart closed. We're feeling lonely because we went from, let me say, completely codependent and having no rights to, I don't fucking need man. Well, we do. Even if you are not into man, you're into women, you do need the divine masculine within you, and you do need the union. And it's about time. I don't think that we come back into union on this planet, because everything is within, so without, by hating men or belittling them, but by empowering ourselves and coming back to a wholeness, that no matter what happened in our childhood and our ancestor line, what still is happening on this planet. I'm getting sometimes really triggered. I think sometimes we go backwards. When I saw about stuff, riots in America that happened, I think last 2 years, I was like, what are they deciding about women's bodies? But we can't get into that. That's the darkness, the fear wanting to get us into. We need to stay focused on what's the truth. And we come from the divinity. Divinity is power, sovereign, worth. Our worth is non-negotiable. But we need to remember, because then we level up the standards, and then the men will rise too. Otherwise, that doesn't work. And yeah, it's one of my biggest joys when I see women being so free and expressing their emotions and just standing up to who they are and letting, their soul just go through them and be their beautiful self. So that's my answer to that question.
Beautiful. Do you think as women, we've gone a little bit too far with the radicalness that you were just speaking about in the I don't need a man movement, I can do everything by myself? When we're talking about these movements in society around women, which is so beautiful to observe, and like you said, everything is so new. Like even from our mother's generation, we are now able to do more than them, and maybe the women after us will be able to do even more. Do you think that the pendulum has swung a little bit too much into the other direction?
Yeah, I do think so. That's why we need to go back to the middle. Where it went way too far is exactly creating these beliefs. I don't need a man and I can do it all on my own. What literally stops us as women to be in our core nature, in the feminine, and because our masculinity is way over the top. Because if we say I don't man, it also is a lot with blocking support. It's that feeling of, you can call it a support wound. You don't allow to be provided by life and nurtured by life. Because let's not make a mistake. If we say I don't trust men and I don't need men, everything is source, everything is God. So you don't say, I don't need that part of the divinity. I don't need that part of Mother Earth. I don't need that. How much do you block yourself of support? And also your own support with yourself. And it comes to me from wounding. And there's a realness. I do see also culture living in Bali. We have very different cultures here. I'm from Germany, and the North, and I would say the northern countries, I don't know, tell me how it's about you, where you come from, but I do feel there is a lot this masculine shield of where they get taught, never be depending on a man. We can do this on our own. While, for example, the Russian culture I'm seeing, they have programmed that it's so normal that the man pays, that the door gets open. If you don't do that, you're not even, that's like the minimum standard. They're very good at receiving. So that has a lot to do with culture. And I do believe there were 2 world wars. So how many women, I'm feeling a bit grief here, who knows how I'm feeling right now, but how many of other grandmothers did not have their love of their life return, the father's return, their son's return. So but they needed to move on. So there's a lot of grief, what I'm seeing within me and the women that I work, to even allow them to grieve, because a lot of our ancestors didn't have time. The women had to push through. So I think there is a realness of I'm all alone from the experience, but it's not the truth. how we can move forward. It doesn't work. And I also feel that there is something really in, let's say, over the top direction of what femininity means. Because a lot of women then talk to me, yeah, but I would love to let go more, but I don't want to be like soft and like, like a little sponge. And I'm like, who the heaven told you that femininity means just hanging around the whole day, being like a little spongy, up in the air, I'm unable to do anything on my own. That's a princess. That's not a queen. That's not a woman. For me, being out of femininity is if I really sit in this beautiful, juicy, trusting coats of I am held and loved and provided in my body, there is a relaxation that comes. And then my fire of creation gets lit up. And I come into this more soft energy and flowy, right? So I just said this to a friend that I would love to bring in here. Is like, women, we're water. Just think about a river. A river has banks. So that's our masculinity. We have structure. But in order that the water can flow, we need to feel safe within ourselves. So I believe when women are like flowy poey, it's actually they are disassociating. They're not here. They're not ready to face pain. And they're lying to themselves and saying, I'm so good. I'm with God, or I'm so in my feminine. I'm like, I think you're just really avoiding what's happening. Like, that's my personal experience. And yeah, it's where I'm like,
I want to go in so
exactly.
many different directions right now. I want to put a pin in this femininity conversation a moment, Christina. I definitely want to circle back to it. But for now, I want to come back to this hypermasculinity because
Yes.
I've seen this a lot in myself, clients, in the dating scene, where you make a good point where you said about the world wars. And that's when we really started to see these feminist shifts, right? When women started to enter the workplace and men went off to war, didn't return. And now maybe there's this generational trauma that we are holding within us of, I am alone. Because back then, they did feel alone because their husbands and sons were gone and they now had to fend for themselves. And who knows what that caused within in their bodies as women and what they had to deal with and the suffering that they went through. And like you said, maybe it wasn't processed and it's handed down to us. And now we are starting to see the the bleeding of that, where we are now feeling alone, along with the individualism that is within our society right now. But this hyper independent woman, hyper masculine woman. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. First of all, what does that look like if a woman is too much in her hyper masculinity? And how does that impact not only her life, but her relationships as well?
So I see like hyper independency also as a trauma response. That's a coping mechanism. How does that look like? No trust. Often I see that there may be friendships, but not the deep ones. So there's always that level, you just let that person that close to you and then you block off because you don't trust that the people are there, right? And you come from this deep belief, I'm all alone. That's an energy that consistently manifests. So you're going to maybe attract even people that you cannot trust or who will leave you or who will betray you because they're just playing into your story. So that woman who is hyper independent, she's doing it all by herself. Often I see in these women, they're super strong, they're super resilient, creative, they get a lot of shit done. They're often the leaders, the ones that take responsibility. So there are a lot of goodies, what they're learning, right? We're always learning on a soul level, beautiful qualities, but they have a problem receiving, huge problem receiving. So there could be lack of money. It could be also they're really good at money, but they don't know how to enjoy it because they don't feel worthy of enjoying that money or enjoying life or letting go. They're dominating in relationships. So I feel like they're playing that she could play the rescuer in relationships, always being the help, having maybe friendships that are high maintenance, that are not balanced, where she never can let really go. And with partnership, I feel like what comes to me are different options. It could be either long distance to like have a lot of space and not so much intimacy, maybe situationships, maybe just really short term, or attracting a boy, because a boy loves to have a mama and a coach, and she's hyper independent. I can do it all alone. So I'm going to nurture that man. I'm going to make him maybe in what I want him to be. That's another thing to go into, maybe not now, but that's that's a trap. That's not okay. But I do believe, and there's so much loneliness. Yeah, inflict physically a contraction, not the ability to let go. And I would also say, was I hyper independent? Let me just check in. I definitely was in this trap, and I say it now trap because it was honestly, a huge awakening, and I would say really sinking in this year. I thought, wow, I did amazing things in my 20s with my sexuality. I did have amazing experiences and lots of learnings, but I thought I was this independent, maybe hyper independent woman who doesn't need a man, who can have one night stands like everybody else. And when I had them, I literally felt empowered, like, see, we can be like you. And it was almost like I reclaimed back some certain things. Learning now and looking back, I would say I fell in a trap that we were sold. What is part for me when you ask about did we go too far? We were sold that when you have sex like men, and being hyper independent and doing your thing, that you're so empowered. For me, looking back, that's a freaking trap because it literally disconnects us from our heart. It disconnects us between our womb and our heart space. It creates even more loneliness. Energetically, that's a whole nother topic to go into, what you even attract in men. The exposure, it's just, I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for the versions that I've been. And I also know what I would now teach my kids or other women about sexuality. I have a very different point of view now. I think it's a trap. I don't think it's the truth. That also for me, hyper independence comes with, like, I can be like a man. There is that energy of like, almost like I need to be like a man. I can prove to be that. That was never our fucking job. We were born in this beautiful woman body.
Yeah, but like you said, it's also a trauma response, isn't it? Like when I reflect upon my own journey with hypermasculinity or hyperindependence, whatever we're calling it, oh, it was very present. And when I did my own exploration, like you mentioned some of the ways that it manifests in terms of more the avoidantly attached female, but in terms of the anxiously attached female, how this could play out, what I was observing in myself was, if I could, now I know the term emasculation, and what emasculation means is to literally take over that role as a man, meaning take care of him, meaning take care of everything. And it was because I had adopted this caretaker role in my childhood, and I then was having beliefs that you can't depend on a man, like you were saying about the trust. You can't trust them to get it right. You have to do it. So we see a lot of these more masculine dominant women doing everything because maybe they believe that I can do it better. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, what kind of men are we attracting if we feel that we can do it better? I was observing that I was financially supporting these men, that I was doing everything for them, from the little things like holding the passports in the airport to just feeding him. I remember I did that once. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is not. And I really had to explore where this was coming from, because how this manifested as a result was I completely stripped him of his masculinity, because men biologically are wired to provide. And when we don't allow that man to step into that space where they can provide and lead us, they don't feel like there's any purpose for them in that relationship. So they'll go. They'll go and find it elsewhere because that's their biological wiring. So I had to really learn that lesson the hard way. And maybe there are some women here listening thinking, oh shit, that sounds like me. I'm very much this way. How can I start to pull back and introduce some of that feminine energy into myself and my relationship? What do you feel like we could say to those women?
Thank you for sharing. I just like to say to you, 100% with you. Yeah. And what you said is so important. I think the first thing is to bring in compassion. When we grow up, to the women who resonate, right, with the caretaker role, when we grow up in this, and it's the same for me, like you, this is what we know. This is our comfort zone. This is where we got the safety. So it is the first thing is bringing awareness to that. What is my comfort zone? What am I known? Oh, I'm always the one, like you said, taking care. And it could be going as far as paying everything. It could be also, but let me say, maybe the women, we can also do it subtle. So for me, I didn't pay, but I was like in a coaching mode, not fully trusting the leadership. So it's also the subtle ways, right? Or where we are in love with the potential. So you're like, but he can be that. He can be that. Avoiding the present. So if you are like this and you're like, I want to shift out of this, I really like to track the man who provides, I would explore. And there are different ways. Like you have a beautiful coaching process. I feel like journaling is very, powerful too, to just write out about receiving, like, because that's the first thing, right? How can I get more comfortable with receiving and feeling safe within? Um, that's like the basic things that are coming up, because if we really go deeper, what I feel we need to address is under this root is this feeling of I'm not lovable as I am. I need to play a role. And that's the deeper inner work I would call everybody out on. If you really want to shift this, you can start with journaling to bring awareness, but you need to make time, however you do it, with a friend, with a coach, with a healer, whoever, to really unravel the identity you created. And healing your inner child, because your inner child was not loved, not listened to, not cared for, didn't receive the love, the support, the safety. That's why she stepped into this caretaker, because she had some control in it. She suddenly feels somehow safe, and she needs you right now. And you looking out probably in man to get that safety right now, being the coach or some other role with man. But this little girl needs you. So I do believe that a child work is super important to get, to have that inner relationship on a very new level, to actually understand that you're safe with who you are, that you are enough, and there's nothing to do. I do feel that's a very important thing we need to do as women on our own first, because if we have that base, then we're like, okay, I'm also feeling worthy of receiving that support and that provision you talked about. Because like you said, really a man in his core, for them providing is like breathing. And if we feel unworthy of receiving, we're gonna block it. So it's up to us to do that inner work. And I would also say, check your environment. What kind of friends do you have around? Are they nagging on men? Do you engage into that? I would just really do some detoxing. What kind of videos are you watching? Like, amplifying the content that you're looking, what you really love about men, and maybe seeing women that are already in that expression that you want to be. Like, that's a very important thing, right? Um, yeah.
Love what you said about receiving, because yes, in my own journey, very, very difficult to receive. So yes, it's about creating safety around receiving. And when I did my own deep dive into this, like, why is this so hard for me to receive love and affection, even though I really wanted it? It was uncomfortable to receive from compliments, from not so much intimacy, but maybe in abundance. I was like, oh, okay, this is now uncomfortable, or just love. And it was because it comes from childhood, and it comes from our conditioning and even the parenting that we receive. Because what's coming to me is my mother's voice right now saying, what do you want? What do you want from this? Like, what are you trying to get from me? So it was almost like this belief of, if you're going to give, what are you expecting in return? And maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
playing out for a lot of us as well, that if I receive, what am I going to have to give in return? What's going to be this expectation? Again, coming from this generational trauma that we've experienced as women, where there was a lot of take, take, take. And there still is in this world, a lot of take, take, take. So maybe there is some fear around that, we invite you to explore within your own journey. And yeah, is there anything you want to add to that, Christina?
Yes, thank you for this. I get a good goosebumps, so it's important we speak on it. Yes, there's a very deep program genetically that we're carrying, and exactly what you said about, and that was my journey when I started opening up, just imagining receiving from a man. Immediately was the fear of losing my power, that if I receive his support, he will ask me to sleep with him whenever he wants to. There was, on a sexual level, a lot of fear of losing my boundaries and power. And I do believe when we look at the generations, a lot of rape also happened in marriages. A lot of things, a woman was told, wait, you're going to have to take off the kids. That's your worth that you're getting, is when you're in the kitchen with kids. They were never asked, what is your dream? You got your whole worth from being the sidekick to your man for centuries. You were expected to have sex. Sex was always connected not with pleasure, but with kids. So it's also that martyr, right? That's also an important archetype to speak on. This sacrifice is still celebrated in movies. Look how she's giving herself up for that man. That's toxic. But this is when we ingrain this feeling, I have to give first before I can receive. How am I worthy of receiving just because I'm breathing? And that's a deep deconditioning. And also finding, like you said, back the trust again with the masculine, that a true man will honor the power, will honor our boundaries, no matter where there's a conflict. Because I have that too from, unfortunately, these things where man provided and then there was a conflict and the man literally put it against that woman. And that's very harmful. And I do believe that this in that moment was not a man speaking, it was this little wounded boy. Because what I got in a very deep transmission in a meditation, no idea who it was, but it was the strongest masculinity that I ever felt. And it was so soft and so consistent. And this energy definitely said to me, Christina, a man, in the maturity, a man, his deepest honor is to protect and provide. So if there's conflict and you would separate, I would never hold this against you because it would be against my honor. And I have goosebumps saying that. And I think that's what I definitely needed to remind, because I always had this fear of I get hurt, right? If I open up more and be like, wait a minute, boys, wounded children, they hurt. But an adult masculine man will come from integrity in his values. Yes, we have shadows, but there are certain things we won't do. And what you speak on is that's what we really need to heal, because our parents weren't asked what kind of woman are you, what kind of man are you. They really followed along, our grandparents, great grandparents anyways. So I do believe we're the first generation of even questioning, what is a woman, what is the man. And I do see a tendency that we go back to the traditional roles in a modern way. So like you said, allowing this deep coding of a man to be the provider and the protector, and us being the nurturer and the expander. And then I think it's up to each couple to decide what it feels good financially, how to put the things. But yeah, I do believe this receiving is a very, very important point. And I do believe we heal in relationships very deeply. So going to women's circle, or maybe man and women's circle, and just starting to be physically in the presence, definitely deeply healing for me, of just being in the presence and feeling safe. How often I just cried and literally had my body shaking and releasing old trauma by being in a circle and seeing that man can be safe. I can be safe around them. was tremendous. So I do believe also in this, yeah, the healing comes through us also, relating in a new way. And it's very deep what we touched on, to really understand, like you said, we carry it from other mothers and we think it's just our ancestors, but they made us. So if we picked up on it, it's our responsibility to let go of it and clear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that we mentioned a lot of this is coming from ancestral, generational trauma, but I'm glad you spoke to the point that it's still happening today, that there will be men out there that will give in order to receive, and they may pressure you in having sex or in doing something that you're not comfortable with. I have been there. I know a lot of women have been in that space where we have given maybe a little bit too much of ourselves sexually, energetically, whatever that looks like, financially, because we felt like we had to, because that was our role to play, because we wanted to please, we wanted to prove, we wanted to be perfect. And it's these 3 Ps that I really had to work on in myself, that I was taking up these 3 archetypes, these 3 parts that I was seeing being playing out in relationships: the provider with the finances, taking that role away from the man; the perfectionist, always wanting to be perfect, and whenever I did something wrong, that means it's going to lead to rejection and abandonment; and the pleaser, wanting to please. And that's what we're talking to right now, is just because a man gives to you, or anyone, a friend, a family member gives to you and you receive, doesn't mean you're obligated to give back. Would I be right in saying that, Christina? Because I know that there needs to be a balance in relationships, right? But when we look at overgiving, that's another thing that comes up a lot in relationships, especially with the pleasing woman, is we overgive, we overgive, we overshare, and then we don't feel like we get enough back in return.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah, love what you said about really just opening yourself up to receiving in small ways from others, being around men in order to create a more safer space for you both to thrive in your energies.
I love that you speak on this about as women having sex, being attached and thinking the man has to be the same, because this is an important point I wished I learned earlier. And we're talking now about pure biology. So listen deeply. It is insane. When we have an orgasm as women, we secrete oxytocin in our brain. Oxytocin is a hormone that forms literally binds us to another person. And we secrete the same amount in our brain when we have an orgasm, like when we feed our baby. So when you imagine you feed your baby and the oxytocin gets secreted, so your baby bonds with you. That same pattern happens when we have an orgasm. It is not possible for us women to just have a one-night stand without getting attached, because our biology will not allow it. So we need to understand this too. I have goosebumps again. Just bring that awareness in. You can literally look at the clock. Okay, for the next 2 days or 3, I'm going to think of that person. I want to have that next to me, because your body literally has that bonding moment. I do love what you said about over giving, that the consequences are passive aggressiveness. When we're in this people pleasing, I know it for myself, when I overgive and I don't allow it to be supported, I feel it can go into passive aggressiveness of being, annoyed, criticizing the partner, or even friendships, because that's not just a pattern for romantic relationships. So I do believe this coming back again to our worth, our sovereignty as women, and our standards is the key. Because last you said, we're still living in a world where when we go into the, let me say, market of men, we have providers and we have predators. And we need to be really trusting more our own intuition, period. Every woman I speak to, they tell me, I feel like I knew. I always knew if that dude was not what I wanted. my human self that was very lonely, especially in my 20s, still went for at least the sex because that was my wounding and my addiction. Sexuality was the only moment where I allowed intimacy for a split moment to happen. And it was very connected with sex. I had to unbrainwash myself to really understand the difference between lust and love, and that I don't have to give myself sexually in any form in order to be lovable or meant for me to choose. I definitely come from anxious attachment style. And so my thing was thinking I have to have quickly sex so they stay. And it is so, and very often my body wasn't even ready when I look back. It was way too quick. And it's a deep process, a deep unraveling that that has to come, like you said, about restraining sexuality. And I love to share openly. I'm right now single. I'm back dating. I took a very conscious time off for 6 months on just being around women and community because my soul said to me very clearly, you need to. I had last year, I'm 36 now. Last year, after my breakup was around April, and in September, because complete honestly here, after my breakup from 3.5 years, talking about codependency, right? Because we started also with this. What I find interesting, and I'm going to make the point back, is that I was hyper independent or completely codependent because I think at the core, I just didn't know I was worthy, trusting myself, actually having my own identity. So I was maybe identifying with the hyper independent, or I was codependent because I didn't have my own sense of self, really. So I thought I healed a lot. I think I did some, but after the breakup, all this stuff of low self-worth came up, and I was honestly for one shocked. The voices that spoke to me, and my addictive pattern came back. I went and had different experiences with men very quickly sexually after, and I was like, what the heck is going on? You didn't change. And this is a pattern. This is an addiction. There's something happening. It doesn't feel good. It's not okay. And the last straw was really, I call them asshole angels, because you know the saying when God says, remember, I'll only send you angels. So for me, the soulmates that are like bringing out all your trauma, they're the asshole angels.
I
Okay.
love that.
And I did need that because my body, and I tell you, women, check in with yourself when you listen now. How often does your body tell you from the beginning if something isn't good? My body till now did it through diarrhea, complete anxiousness, nervousness, and I didn't listen. But I had to because I literally went down in my weight so rapidly. And I was like, I need to get out of this. And a lot of stuff from my childhood came up that I really needed to focus. And then came what I called my month with God, where I really retreated, just called my friends, and then no community. And this is where my soul said, just be with women, community for half year, no dating, and celibacy completely. And so that changed a lot. And sometimes I think we women, we need to do the uncomfortable. Not always something that feels good is good for us. Not always something that is uncomfortable is not good. Because when I wrote down the date till when I will not dating, you know what happened? Talking about anxious attachment and what came up. I wrote down the date and I had this voice saying, don't take my drug away from me. I was like, what? I just started crying. I'm like, what the heck? And then it came completely my consciousness, how addicted I was to somehow always be in connection with man and just having the attention or whatever it is. So I knew in that moment exactly why I needed to do that. And that was also the month where I really discovered, talking about God, I put having that love, having that man, having that husband above the relationship with myself and above the relationship to God, to my spirit. I was like, what the heck? And I do believe everything is in own timing. I'm doing a lot of self-healing for many years. I'm with healers and coaches. But what changed for me my whole life was the honesty and being willing to sit with the consequences of my choices and feeling the feelings I just didn't want to feel and creating that safety within. And So it was the most perfect choice. I'm so grateful I did it. It's now a year later. I'm like over here celibate. I love it. It's a complete different sovereignty. I'm very clear on dating and what you talked about. I literally ask my body. So, we women, we can ask our body, like, can connect with our heart, our womb, and be like, when do you want a man to kiss us? When do you want to be sexually intimate? When does that feel safe to you? She was super clear. And she said, when you're committed. I'm like, okay. So, and when I'm on dates now, first date, second date, third date, whenever that comes up, I'm speaking on this and it will sort out a lot of men. And I do know they are beautiful, awakened, however we call them, conscious men who actually have the same. They don't want to sexually engage unless there's exclusivity, there's commitment. We had to talk about values and vision. That's a turn on for me, having that kind of beautiful integrity. And I do believe that it's important to bring that up. Um, and I do believe what you said, this is how, when we hold that standard, we will attract the man who will match us there. Um, and there's something, I just heard a man saying, I don't know where on Instagram, men want to claim us. It's not hunting, but they want to conquer, they want to do something for this queen. So if we give them everything, our heart, our dreams, our body, what is there to do for them? And it doesn't come from this power game. It comes from also honoring ourselves. Why would I let somebody enter my beautiful body if that person has no integrity of showing up? You know? So I do believe celibacy is a good thing. Having really good rules for yourself, especially coming from anxious attachment. I mean, Sammy, I met you in Thailand. I remember my tears. I was crying when we did the test because I finally understood more of my behavior and my strategies. And so, especially for me, knowing where some parts of me go, to have certain boundaries, how I date, the pauses in between, check-ins with myself, maybe speaking with friends. Or I have now, luckily, I'm really grateful, the ability that if I hear that little voice of like, oh my God, this could be it, or this was so beautiful. When do we see each other again? I'm like, okay, honey, I hear you. And I know love is great. I love love. But let's wait a minute, this reparenting. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's, of course, we're human. I cry sometimes, and no matter what I believe, there are moments where I feel like I would love to have that hug. I would love to have that man just holding me.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's important too, that to be honest, I have a profound belief that my man is out there right now. And I also have sometimes the sadness and and looking out and be like, wow, we're in a wild world.
Right. And the dating scene right now is a jungle. I have, many clients that are dating at all different ages. And I just want to thank you for sharing your story and for being open about being single, being dating, and your addiction to men, to love, to intimacy and what that meant for you. That was really powerful, so thank you. And I want to touch upon it a little bit more. Oh my gosh, so many different directions. I want to take this. It's just okay. Let me come back to my first one, which is the intuition, that we as women have such powerful intuitions. We always have. And it's through patriarchal society that it's been squashed. And now we're starting to really uncover it again, learn how to listen to it and learn how to follow it. Because I feel like a lot of women are in this space where they can hear it, but they're not following it for whatever reason that may be. And to be talking about sex, let's talk a little bit about sex with this. What I'm seeing, even in myself, in my past self, is we're hearing the intuition, we're hearing the body signals that maybe we don't want to sleep with this guy, maybe we don't want to be sexually intimate, or we don't know. We don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We need a little bit more time to figure out whether we're in that space of anxious attachment or whether this is intuition talking. And then sometimes we fall back into those default behaviors of pleasing, of feeling like we should, feeling like we have to. And then once the deed has been done, we go away feeling shit. We go away feeling like, I shouldn't have done that. And now we're falling even more into that shame of spiral of shame, that we feel empty. We feel terrible that we did that. We're crushing ourselves, and we're not being compassionate with ourselves in that moment. So I want to, I guess, ask you to, if you had any advice or tips on from your own journey, how you went from being, in your words, addicted to men, needing a man, having that casual sex one night stand, knowing that your body is saying no, to now being in a space of really following your truth and your intuition, entering into celibacy, being so empowered in that space. How can as anxiously attached beauties start to really follow the intuition and let go of that pleasing behavior when it comes to sex?
Powerful question. Let me tune in what wants to come here.
Of course.
Ooh. Okay, let me start with what my turning point was. And I do believe it was the amount of suffering was enough. And sometimes I know we do have to suffer to finally make that switch. That I said no more of this, even if I don't know how. And I feel the revelation, this deep sadness. Like I can just only describe the best I can, but sitting and understanding. And it got reflected from me from one of my teacher mentor and worked with. And, when we get reflected, you can take it in or you can just swipe it off. But it was really strong that I put getting this relationship with a man above my own relationship to myself. There was something switched in me. I'm like, how far did I abandon myself? How far in the pain that I felt and the grief? And I said, wow, no, no. So it's time to come back to Christina. It's time to come back to my heart, because I also felt how much I outsourced my power to man, how lost I felt inside. And I didn't want that anymore. And also that strengthening that connection with my soul, with God, that deep love from within was what is really filling me up. Because I no longer need a man, that I can sit here and say, I am proud of the life I've built and I am building. Do I seek my beautiful husband? I do. But I also know that I am okay. I'm more than enough. I matter and I'm important to this world. I have amazing, beautiful friendships and growing. I don't need that man anymore. And that is huge to even tap into that and to release this deep misunderstanding between lust and love. I think that's a very deep thing. Doing that really reprogramming to understand that this was not love. I misconcepted lust with love. And that's a deep thing. If you think you need to have this, and I think there's a difference between a healthy desire and lust is actually one of the 7 deadly sins. It's that, and I need you, and I take. Lust is a lot with taking. And it's just, I'm feeding myself. If we think we need that, we're always seeking it outside and really distracts us from our heart. So understanding that and really releasing that brought me back to me. So that was a huge step. And okay. And there's another thing that comes through what changed for me, the path. And this is what I spoke on already, is sitting with the consequences of our choices. And I do think sometimes we're maybe a bit too fluffy in this coaching, healing, spiritual community, or even on Instagram. And maybe some people will be triggered. I'm going to say it anyways. Us getting older or you getting older will not fix your problem. There are so many women, 50, 60, 70, who die single, who could have the love of their life, but they didn't look within. They didn't sit down. They didn't make the time to choose themselves. And even if they don't know how, but they send out that prayer, they send out, I'm ready for however. I have goosebumps saying this. And I was sitting there, 35. I thought I'm going to be married already. I have my kids or something is in the movement. And I was sitting there and I was very honest. I said, if I'm not changing this pattern, if I'm not changing what's going on right now, I will not attract my man. I just knew that because I'm not going to be a match. The man that I like wants the whole Christina, wants a Christina who's honest, who always has a certain amount, who can hold herself, that I can speak my needs. I don't want to be perfect, but that I have the capacity within, and that requires me to step up, to finally choose me, to be that good parent within, to be like, yes, Christina, and you deserve this. And that was a huge turning point. I feel like, ask yourself, when you're in this pattern, if I'm not changing this, what will be the price that I pay? And it will be much worse than taking the step and being like, I'm going to jump into the unknown. I don't even know how. Again, I have goosebumps saying this, but it's time. There will be nobody coming. And I know some people get triggered also by this, but there will be nobody coming and giving you finally the permission to love you. You and I, we are in this field supporting women because I love that. And I do believe with support and guidance, we come their way easier and a bit faster and with more compassion, maybe more capacity, because we have that safe space to finally feel and be. And you deserve that. And we all deserve that. We were never meant to do this alone, but especially from anxious attachment, the other person was our drug. It's a codependency. It's a mental disease. I think like sometimes we undertone this. I don't want to put this into drama, but it is addiction. It is a mental disease where you think you need that person to feel safe. And that is the most disconnection we can have. And I was tired of missing myself. So I really think it's this moment of choice and really sitting down. What comes through again, sit down and think, what will be the price I pay if I'm not changing this?
Wow, that's some powerful, tough love there. That was, ooh, it's got shivers. But yes, I hear it. I hear it loud and clear. A lot of us needed to hear that message, I believe. Because, yeah, we can get trapped into this addiction cycle of going after that lust that you explained that feels so good. It feels so good in the moment, and we chase it. We chase and the addiction is the chemicals that we feel in the body, right? So we're chasing the external thing that is making us feel a type of way inside. And thank you, media and Disney movies, we are now thinking that that's what love is supposed to feel like. And it's about retraining that part as well, right? Like, what does love mean to you? What does love feel like for you? And that's when we can start to make that separation between lust and love and start to break those addictive cycles as well, when we truly get to the bottom of why the addiction is present for us in the first place. So I just want to thank you again for really speaking on that, such a powerful topic. And what I also observe when we are in these addiction cycles and what we tend to believe about other human beings is that we all share the same experiences. So, what I know about the anxiously attached individual is that, and I'm not painting everyone with the same paintbrush here, but this is a commonality amongst us and not something that every single person will feel if they identify with an anxious attachment style. But when we engage in sex, we become attached. Maybe that would be your truth or not, but it certainly was mine. So as soon as and we feel like because we are feeling that way, because we are now getting attached, that the man must be getting attached as well. But that's not how it works. Men view sex very differently. And we are now trapping ourselves in this space of lust, of addictive chemicals, of premature attachment, and wondering why the man doesn't feel the same, because we feel it, they must feel it. And it's about breaking those cycles and those patterns, like you said, just coming back to that relationship with self, calling yourself out, thinking about those consequences. Wow, that was a very powerful message. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh.
so I just wanted to say that Christina and I started this conversation with the intention of really speaking into codependency, which we have a little bit. But what I want to say is that we have allowed this conversation to really flow, and we've touched upon so many different other topics and messages that really needed to come through, which is very interesting to observe. And now I feel like I'm being guided towards something different, Christina. So hopefully I will invite you to flow with me, because you mentioned that you are currently dating. And you also mentioned that you are really in this space of knowing that your man is out there. He's coming. You can feel him. There's no need to worry. There's no need to stress. I have a lot of, let's say, older listeners, late 30s, 40s, and 50s, that are still dating, that still may not have found that love, or may have found it before and still seeking for that love that they want to be able to experience in their life. And they feel like they're on a bit of a time bomb. Time is running out. What if I die alone? What if I never find this person? And they're starting to get themselves in this space of panic, of anxiety, not believing that it could ever happen for them if it hasn't happened yet, or will not happen for them again because maybe that time has passed. So I would love to know a little bit about your journey, how you were able to really step into that space of knowing, going from a space of maybe hoping that it might happen to knowing it's going to happen. What really supported you to step into that space?
Powerful question again. Oh, thank you. Um, I feel this is something in my soul, in my heart. It's like a non-negotiable feeling. I do know it's gonna happen. You know, when you have that deep knowing it's gonna happen. I I do see it, I do feel it. It's part of my plan, and I'm not negotiating. And I know as I ask it, it's given. And I do believe for every woman in every season and every age, there is an amazing, compatible life partner, soulmate, however you call it. God created this world abundantly. They are more than enough. What I would say is deep luck. And now we're going into a bit of quantum, right? And energy, because we are energy in motion. And you need to be aware of what you're thinking. First of all, again, I have women around me who believe that too, who empower, who celebrate. If women start saying, especially in Bali, a lot of people are saying, oh, dating in Bali is so problematic and it's transient and la 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 la. It is. I'm on the apps now. It's new, but I'm doing it. And it is very transient. But I refuse to get plugged into that consciousness, because then I'm with the problems and I'm not for it. And you need to be sovereign. We need to be sovereign as women to be like, I'm not allowing that story to dictate me. Every word that you're thinking or speaking, you either curse yourself or you bless yourself. So please bless yourself. Just imagine your inner girl. Would you take care of her? You take care of your inner girl, your inner teenager. Would you tell her, oh, honey, maybe not, ain't gonna happen? You would never say that to your best friend. So when you have these moments, whatever your practice is, I really, really encourage to have a practice with your higher self, with God, spirit, source, Mother Earth, whatever it is, because that helps me in moments of anxiety, or when I have a cringe. I'm like, dear God, right now I'm like in the sphere, my angels, I'm very connected with angels. So I'm like saying, my beautiful angels, I'm calling out on my romance angels. I need your support in my love life. I'm giving over my fear to you. I'm anxious a bit. I'm sad. Being honest, because only when we're honest, it can be changed. I'm not doing, I don't want to sugarcoat. Like, I'm honest. I maybe feel a bit defeated. I'm sad. I'm maybe a bit angry. I'm annoyed. I'm going to give this all to you and ask you to realign me with the truth. Bring in the frequency of my highest level soulmate. Let me feel him and let me reassure me. Show me a sign that it's happening. Like, I'm getting into a different energy because I'm not allowing that to dictate. I'm 36. I want to have kids. I know that pressure. I know that feeling in the collective consciousness, but I'm opting out. And you can literally say that by saying, even if you're maybe new to spiritual practices, you have your own team, but just stating a prayer, please disconnect me from the fearful consciousness around dating, around my age of women, and bring me back to the truth that there's more than enough for me. Bring me back to the peace. Take a deep breath. It will happen. You need to find your own way of that higher power and that belief. And it's just, for me, it's a non-negotiable. So
Oh,
Ah,
yes, coming back to those beliefs and what you're subscribing to. And it's very similar to my own story that I share about the beliefs that we hold about dating and about about a lack of men or an abundance of men. We get to decide which camp we want to be in. And I always come back to the example you mentioned, Bali, same in Thailand. When I first moved to Chiang Mai, I was constantly being told by women here, oh, forget about dating. The dating pool it's terrible. It's very small. Everyone's going after Thai women. Good luck. And I'm like, huh, okay. That didn't feel good to receive. And then I asked myself, do I want to subscribe to that? And I was observing these women when they were telling me this. They didn't seem happy. They were suffering. They looked like they were in this prison almost, like they wrote themselves off. Literally, I could feel that energy. They wrote themselves off because they're telling themselves that all the men are going after Thai women. And I'm like, I don't want to believe that. I'm not subscribing to it. And I called it. I said, I'm not subscribing to it. I don't believe that to be true. And it comes back to what you want to believe to be true. And it just so happened I met someone 2 weeks later. I remember someone telling me the dating scene is shit. I'm like, huh, not subscribing. Met someone 2 weeks later. We had a beautiful 10-month relationship. And I continue to meet wonderful men here. So it's all about, for me, when I look back at this journey, really what we're subscribing to in terms of beliefs and ideologies, but also who we're choosing to be in this space. Okay, we're single. We're in this beautiful space of being single. We know we want to be in a relationship, knowing that that's coming. Who am I deciding to be as I'm going through this process? So I'm not going to feel defeat. Well, it's okay to be honest, right? Like you said, being honest with how you're feeling, but also making that conscious choice of I'm going to continue living my life in a beautiful, abundant way, knowing that it's on its way, instead of choosing to be sad, depleted, and writing myself off to ever finding someone because I believe that there's no one out there. Easier said than done sometimes, I know, but it's always a work in progress, isn't it? It's always a practice, it's a process. So I just want to say that I know it's easier said than done. And like Christina shared, I also went through those feelings of discomfort and sadness and despair. And it's okay to be in those spaces. But how long are we going to stay there? Until we bring ourselves back out.
amen. And what are you plugging into as your compass? For me, it should not be the human world, because we have a lot of fear in disconnection. If you plug into your heart, this divine or your higher self, or again, into that space where you know you are more than enough, you have this abundantly love that comes through you, and you're worthy as you are. You don't need a man to be complete. And having that compass within you as a guidance system, somehow develop it. Maybe it's a tree, maybe it's for you walking down through a forest and just being with trees. But this is, find a way to nurture that in a relationship with this inner calm or inner deeper thing, because we are women and men, we are all divine beings. And women, we are literally portals. If we have children or not, our womb is a portal through the universe. Can we just sit with this for a moment? A semen and an egg comes together, and a soul and energy enters through that portal. We have a portal to the universe. We need to fucking remember how powerful we are. We multiply everything wherever we are as women. We multiply, and with the right partner, his business will go up through the roof with us. And when we remember that, why would we even worry if there's somebody out there? I would check. So what came through when you speak is, maybe to the elder women when you spoke about time, and even end of 30s, 40s. When you worry, are you plugged into the fear because other people say that? Are you watching movies that are not good? Or do you still have that little belief you're only complete? Because you're living for yourself. We are all one, but at the same time, we come alone on this world and we die alone. So, how can you nourish your own relationship to yourself? How can you make it more vibrant? And what are you actually doing? What came through is like, I saw the guides speak about this. I'm going to speak on this to the women right now listening. Where do you put yourself? Are you going out and doing things you have fun with? Like, are you going dancing? Are you going to that class, what you wanted to do? Don't wait for the guide. Do it for yourself. And I know for myself saying that right now, I have something I was waiting to get on a date with. And I know my team was like, do that for yourself, right? Do that trip for yourself. But it's also about getting into that joyous experience, enjoying your femininity, like, loving your hair, finding your own way of dressing, enjoying your, like, how's your energy? Because if you go out and be like, where is he? Can this come now? You cringed. It's not attractive. Like, would you ever want to be friends with someone who's like, I need a friend right now? You would be like, oh gosh, no, thank you, right? It's like, how can you go in a state of relaxation and joy and being grateful and reminding yourself why you are the main prize? Because you are. And it's a gift to love you. Let that sink in. It's a gift to love you.
It's a
A
gift
gift
to
to
love
listen
you.
to you, to see you. It's a gift to love you.
That's beautiful, beautiful message to all women out there who needed to hear that. And I feel like we could go on forever, Christina, forever on these topics. And we hadn't even gotten onto the topic of codependency. We're going to have to do another episode. And I just wanted to say one last thing before I ask you your final question about femininity. When I was learning to tap into my own femininity, I remember someone sharing with me, femininity is about tapping into your joy. And I feel like when we are high achieving, ambitious, type A women who value being independent, we get out there and we get what we want and we have no problem with that. And we're doers, we're action takers. And sometimes being in dating and relationships can feel very triggering because it is all about receiving. It is all about other people as well that we have no control over. And I remember thinking, how can I tap into more of this femininity? Tap into your joy. I realized in that moment, I don't do nothing for myself that brings me joy. I do everything to achieve an outcome, whether it's money, status, meaning, whatever. I study, again, all based on the outcome, or I please. Everything I do is for other people. So, and that's beautiful. Serving as well is beautiful. But then I was like, what do I do for me? So, an invitation for everybody is to tap into your joy. Maybe you don't know what brings you joy. Take a look back into your life so far, back to your childhood. What did you used to do that brings you joy? What made you light up? And you did it for because as children, we're not looking to make money. We're not looking to get a higher status. All we care about, of course, we care about getting our needs met, etc., etc. But apart from that, we care about feeling joy, that innocent joy. So I just wanted to leave that invitation there as well to find your joy. One last question for you, Christina, my love, is you work a lot with women. You're so for women. I can see that oozing out of you, how passionate you are about women. And I felt it in your energy when I met you as well. I felt so seen and held by you. I didn't feel any resistance. And it was such a beautiful gift to receive, especially in a world where we can get triggered by other women. You may hold a sister wound, compare ourselves, get jealous, all of that stuff. So you have a beautiful energy when it comes to women. So I know that this is such a deeply ingrained passion in you, which is why I think this question is so important for me to ask you. And that is, what is that one thing that you wish more women understood about themselves, about the world as a whole, about relationships, anywhere you feel like this question is taking you? If you were to speak to women as a collective, what is that one thing you wish they knew or understood more?
Wow. Okay. Okay. Three things, one sentence, probably. Let's see. That your vulnerability and your authentic expression is pure strength, is pure power. That your body is sacred and that you are a walking oracle on two legs. You are God in motion.
Receiving that right now, receiving it, holding it up, stepping into that power that we all hold as women. Christina, thank you so much, so much for joining me here today. to impart your beautiful wisdom. I knew that you were just going to just, give us such gifts and messages. And I just feel so uplifted right now as a woman hearing you speak and share. How can listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
You can find me on Instagram under Raw Woman Official. And then my website is raw-woman.com. That's where you can find me and connect. And yeah.
Beautiful. And all those links are in the show notes. As always, if you want to go and check Christina out, I highly recommend you do. She is all for women empowerment. So if you need that energy around you right now, if you need that powerful voice speaking to you, having your back, go and give her a follow. And I hope that everyone here today joining us has, I'm sure of it, has taken so much from this conversation. I hope it has really supported you to step into your power, into your innate worth as a woman, to really be the creator that you are and getting everything that you deserve. So on that note, Christina, again, a massive thank you for joining me. Big thank you to our listeners as well. And we'll see you in the next episode. Christina, thank you.
Thank you, Sami. Thank you to every woman listening. It was such a joy and pleasure. My God, I'm oozing too.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Relationship Rehab podcast. I hope that this episode has supported you in healing, growing, and evolving out of insecure attachment and unhealthy relationship patterns and into safe, authentic love with yourself and others. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would just take a second to rate and review this podcast. Every rating and review from you guys counts, as it really helps this podcast to grow so it can reach more people who need to hear this content. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your IG stories, and tag me at the.relationship.rehab with your biggest takeaway from the episode. I really do love reading them. See you back here next week for another episode on the Relationship Rehab podcast.